Patrick Netherton Show, 1130 The Tiger. He's Rogers Hampton. I'm Patrick Netherton. Pleased to have you with us, and very pleased to welcome in a friend who, every time you turn around, he's doing something bigger and better. He's been at ESPN. He's now writing for Slate. Did a really interesting column about the Michael Jordan documentary and really about Michael Jordan specifically. He's Joel Anderson, used to write for the Shreveport Times, now at Slate. Joel, first of all, before we get into all of this stuff, how are you? How's the wife? How's the family? Everyone doing okay?
Yeah, no, everything's great, man. First of all, good to hear from you, Patrick and Roger. Yeah, man, things are great, man. Well, actually, let me roll that back a little bit. It's not great. Obviously, this is a very difficult time for me, for my family, for a lot of other people. But under the circumstances, it's not that bad. We're safe. We're, socially isolating, still in our place. I think that I may have actually had COVID-19, last month, but
really
got over it and I'm healthy. Yeah. Well, I was down about 3 weeks and didn't go to the hospital or anything, but I had like very specific symptoms, and my doctors were like, it could be probably not anything else.
Did you going to do the antibody test?
I'm going to do the antibody test as soon as I can. Yeah. Absolutely.
Okay.
Because I want to go home. I want to visit my folks.
Sure.
So I don't trust myself until then.
Are your folks still in Houston?
They are.
Okay.
Yeah, both of them. They still live down there, and by this time I would have been down there probably a couple times this year, and I haven't seen them since the holidays at this point.
Yeah.
So.
All right. So let's talk about the Last Dance and Michael Jordan specifically, because I spent the better part of yesterday, and I've tried my best not to talk about this at all. As a matter of fact, I haven't even watched the documentary, and I don't know that I want to. I've got it recorded. I didn't want to watch it in 5 weeks, over 5 weeks. I just wanted to watch it all at once. But the more I see people that I respect on Twitter talk about it, the less I actually want to watch it, because it just seems like Michael Jordan is kind of an ass, and that's just it. It's competitive and great, sure, all of that stuff, but it just seems like he's not a very nice guy.
Yeah, but I don't think that should let you stop it from watching it, because, in the end, it is damn good entertainment.
Mm-hmm.
And for somebody like, actually, we're like roughly the same age, right? I'm 41.
I'm 43,
yeah. Right. Okay, 43. So we kind of grew up with Michael Jordan,
mm-hmm.
And being part of his like rise to fame, and when he was, probably, arguably the most famous person in the world. And so, I think that like getting a chance to watch that in retrospect is like really interesting. And there were just things that came up in the documentary that I totally forgot about, or I did not have a lot of context for in the 90s that helped with that. If you're looking for something to be a work of journalism, like a documentary that is a work of journalism, this is probably not it. But if you're just looking for sheer entertainment, I think The Last Dance will probably be worth it. Like, I don't regret watching it. And if they had an episode 11 and 12 on Sunday, I would absolutely be watching.
It's funny because I didn't get into it with the director of The Last Dance, but I made a comment when they were talking about coming out with the Sammy Sosa and Mark McGwire 30 for 30, mm-hmm. and I said, are they going to give them full editorial control? And someone actually, threw the director's Twitter handle in there and added him. And next thing you know, he comes in and says full editorial control in quotes ? And I just didn't respond because Jordan's people put it on. It's his production company. You know he wasn't going to sit down and give you that much information if he wasn't going to have sort of last editorial control on all of that stuff. That is, as a guy who just came off of having a great documentary podcast series, does that offend your journalistic sensibilities in some way?
It doesn't offend it, because I do understand that the director was kind of in a bind. Like, you have this behind the scenes footage that they've touted and was sort of the spine of this series, mm-hmm. right? And so they wanted to find a format for it. And then, that the only way that you can get some of this stuff out to the world is if Michael Jordan has, some degree of editorial control in it. And it's like, would you really turn down that opportunity to do something cool, to have that much real estate on ESPN in a time when most of us aren't doing anything else, or there's nothing else on TV? So I totally get, maybe his sensitivity around that, because who it would be really tough for me to have that opportunity and turn it down. But I think that he has to understand that people are going to be critical and be dubious of the idea that we really saw anything that would have questioned Jordan's narrative, or Jordan's version of events. I mean, I even think about there's an episode, and I can't remember, it was like episode 7 or something, and they're recapping the Bulls' final series against the Seattle Supersonics, right? And Gary Payton said, "Hey man, I gave Michael Jordan some trouble, basically. Like if I'd guarded him for more than the final 3 games of the series, maybe things would have been different." And they show Michael Jordan this quote, and he's just like, "I didn't have any problem with the glove, but if you go to the stats, he actually did." Gary Payton affected him in that series, but they never corrected the record in the documentary. It was just left there, and leaving it for you to go to Google or the Basketball Reference or whatever to see that maybe Jordan wasn't quite being honest about the difficulties Gary Payton posed. But it's just that sort of stuff, right? But I think that the director should be proud of the fact that they put together a pretty good, pretty entertaining product. It didn't disappoint anybody in that way. And as far as it being, not quite being an act of journalism, I'm fine with it. I mean, they can't all be that way. So. Talking
to Joel Anderson from Slate. Joel, your column that you wrote about it, you basically said Michael Jordan is exactly who you thought he was, and I guess who probably a lot of us. I don't know that a lot of people. We've heard stories about Jordan being a hard driving leader and how he kind of gets after his guys, but I don't know that people understood the depth of it. Do you think maybe some people were surprised by what they found out about Jordan, even if you weren't?
I think probably so, because I was a strange kid when the Jordan rules came out in '92. I think I read it. I was 14 years old, and I was interested in this long book about the behind the scenes Michael Jordan and the Chicago Bulls. And then when the follow-up book came out, When Nothing Else Matters, which was a review of his time with the Wizards, came out in 2004, I read it then. So I had a lot of this background knowledge on Jordan built up all over the years. So not a lot of this was a surprise. But if you're the kind of person that only engaged with him, NBA on NBC or, Be Like Mike commercials or, Hanes commercials, all that sort of stuff, then yeah, you probably would be surprised to know that Jordan was kind of a jerk to his colleagues and coworkers. And, they get into that. But I do think that the reason that Michael Jordan had that in a documentary, that he had some degree of editorial control, is that he finds that admirable. He thinks that's leadership. He thinks that he was inspiring his teammates to greater and better heights, and that's arguable. I mean, you can't argue with his results, but you can argue about whether or not it played a role in how good his team was. But I think that that's something that even though he said before the series came out that he was worried that people would think that he was mean, I think that that's something that he actually wanted to get across to people, that he found that to be the way that he treated his teammates was it was mere persuasion and hard work and his work ethic and not anything else.
Well, when you brought to light the quote that he said, basically paraphrasing, people thought that I was too hard on my teammates. Well, that's just on you. You never won anything. To me, that's just such a jerky attitude to have about things. Like, if you want to say, hey, I was hard on my guys and we won championships and that's fine. Maybe there's other ways to get it done, but this is how we got it done. But I mean, to go that route and to basically just tell everyone else, well, you didn't do what I did. You never won what I won. It seemed like it was the complete wrong thing to say in that point in time.
Well, I think that's why I think he had it in there, because I think that he believes that what he did was right. And ultimately he wanted to have the last word on his motivational tactics, right? And I mean, what he says overlooks the idea that there's been all sorts of ways to win championships in the history of the sports. Like, it hasn't come out that Tim Duncan was abusive to Manu Ginobili or, Boris Diaw,
right?
Or that Larry Bird, mistreated Dennis Johnson during the Celtics runs, right? But, Michael Jordan firmly believes, because he was the greatest winner of his era, that is the justification for what he did. And I mean, I just don't find it persuasive, but a lot of people do, Patrick. Like, I got a lot of emails, LinkedIn messages Facebook messages from people that are telling me that basically I was a loser. And I was like, well, I mean, that's arguable. I don't think I'm a loser, but obviously I didn't win on the level of Michael Jordan. But a lot of people find that argument persuasive. And so, it's just another thing we have to argue over right now, right?
Do you think his existence is lonely now? Because he alienated so many people as he was coming up that, I mean, because Charles Barkley talked about how he and Jordan, who used to be very tight, play golf all the time, they don't talk anymore. Do you think he's lonely?
That's a tough question to answer, right?
Sure.
I mean, he's got remarried a few years ago. He's got his kids. He does have a tight circle of friends around him, like his driver, his trainer. I mean, I should note that the people that are not his family are people that are dependent on him, right?
Right.
And those are his quote friends, right? So
I even said yesterday, the fact that his best friend was the security guard, to me, says a lot about this guy, Yeah.
But the other thing I think, and me trying to be a little more kind to Jordan and Leslie, I think that because he was arguably the most famous person in the world in the 90s, because he came from, very modest roots in North Carolina, that maybe he was wary of the world. And it would be really hard to not be wary of people coming around you and wanting things from you the way that he was, right? So it would probably be really hard to establish really authentic relationships with people under those circumstances. So I can sort of understand that if his circle is small or he seems sort of withdrawn, it's probably been a lot of people asking him for stuff over the course of his life. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But in terms of his teammates, I mean, you can sort of read between the lines. It doesn't seem like there's a lot of warmth or a lot of like camaraderie with the people that he used to play with. I mean, even right now, it doesn't seem that he and Scottie Pippen have much of a relationship. It's like, man, you guys did all that winning together, and it doesn't seem like y'all were really cool.
No.
It's that part of it is sad to me.
Ho Grant is basically called him out. Even Robert Parrish, Centenary's own, just went and called him out and said, the guy tried to step to me when I was there. I said, this isn't going to happen, and he backed away, and we won a championship. I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy. And I mean, dude, I've been on teams and been in places where they're not coworkers you're going to go under, right? It's not colleagues. But it seems like there are a lot of people that have like a simmering resentment. And I think it would also be good to note the people that did not participate or the people that were not interviewed in this documentary. And I think that says a little bit of something too. And there are a lot of people, well, for instance, Byron Russell, who he, made the shot over in the 98 finals, right? That person is a really pivotal part of this story. He wasn't in there, but also consider that Byron Russell later played with Michael Jordan with the Wizards for a season. He was his teammate. There's plenty of incentive for Byron Russell to show up in that documentary, and he wasn't there.
I wonder how much Jordan pushed him off in practice with the Wizards. That'd be interesting to find out.
Yeah, I mean, if Jordan didn't like what you did in practice, as we learned in the documentary, you might get punched. If he thought he could get away with punching you, maybe that's the best.
That's true. That's why when he stepped to the chief and the chief said, "This ain't happening," he turned around and went, "Okay, well, then I guess they didn't. I'll just head on back over here now."
Oh yeah, Woodlawn is sitting there his own, man.
That's right.
You don't want to run up on the chief, man.
No.
So yeah, that wouldn't have gone well for me.
No, Woodlawn. You don't want to run up on anybody from Woodlawn if you can help it. Talking to Joel Anderson from Slate. All right, Joel. I promised that we were gonna get into your bad food opinions, and they are legendary and they are myriad. The last one I saw was all spices are basically the same.
I think that my wife tweeted that out.
Yeah.
And it caught steam on Twitter, right? And so what was going on here is that it's a reductive. It reduces what I actually said, which is that for the most part, spices are the same. And so I think that if you want to have something sweet, right? If you want to, put something in your oatmeal, sweet, cinnamon, sugar, brown sugar, whatever, all that kind of stuff is the same. So if you want to put something spicy in your food, it's all roughly the same. Or if you want to put something that gives it a little salt, just a little bit more flavor, all that stuff is roughly the same to me. You know what I'm saying? But yeah. I didn't say that sugar and garlic salt were the same. I'm just saying that of the many types of spices, if you break them down,
right,
a lot more of them are more similar than that. I defy anybody to tell me or show me if you put paprika or cumin in your eggs or whatever the hell you're going to eat. I bet you could not tell me what the difference was. So
and I to be honest with you, I'm kind of with you on that. And I watch a lot of cooking shows, Food Network, the Bobby Flays, and all these people, and they talk about, oh well, I'm going to add Wahican chilies because they have a little bit more of an oaky flavor, and I'm like, they do? Like, how do you know that?
Yeah.
Like, nobody knows that. I think you're making all of this up.
Yeah, right. I'm just saying, I think for the most part that you can replace a lot of the spices with a different spice, and you won't be able to say. It's kind of like wine. Like, have you read about all these studies that people will, they supposedly know a lot about wine, and you give them a cheap version and an expensive version, and they can't tell the difference. Well, that is basically my theory on spices.
Yeah. All right. So what do you think have you gotten the most grief about in terms of your food opinions? Because you keep throwing them out there, and there's so many of them that I lose track. But what do you feel like the one you've gotten the most grief over?
Man. Oh, well, you know what? I just kind of think pasta is silly. You know what I mean? Like, I just, so actually, let me explain. So I just say, well, look, I'm 40-something years old.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, there's just no reason to be eating pasta all the time. You know what I mean? Like, or bread. Oh, another opinion that really got people upset was that I just don't understand eating bread.
Uh-huh.
I was like, really, do people get excited about bread like that anymore? I mean, just like I'm not talking about bread that you have on on a sandwich or something like that, or whatever, but just like a slice of bread. Like, even when you have barbecue and they have like a slice of white bread there, I'm like, come on, man, is that really part of the show? Do you really care about that? So that's the kind of thing that I've gotten a lot of grief over. That, in my opinion, that pasta is basically BS. Like, you really don't, maybe when it's cold, and I think it's like a real good cold weather food, but like, I just can't imagine having a big plate of noodles in the summer. It doesn't make a lot of sense.
Now, if you want to hear something really funny, Joel, Rogers and I had lunch at Monjuni's today where we ate garlic toast and pasta. So,
oh my God, you really got into it.
Yeah.
Monjuni's, the one on Airline?
No, the original on Louisiana, man. Always the original.
Oh, okay. There used to be one on Airline.
Yes, there may still be, like, for all I know, but the original one was on Louisiana, and that's the one I always eat at. I can't go for the other ones, man. I have to go to the original if I get the opportunity to. I don't know if I've ever been to Monjuni's. See, I didn't even like Italian then, man. See, man, what a terrible life you've lived, Joel Anderson. What a terrible life you've lived.
I'm indirectly. Some people indirectly blame me for the closure of one Italian restaurant in Bossier City. I'm not going to talk about it. I'm not going to name that place because I used to do food reviews at the time.
Yeah,
and
you've got to be the worst person in history to do food reviews.
I like a lot of food, and the thing is, when people do, what's funny, Patrick? Not long after I did food reviews, they decided to stop doing it.
Yeah.
because I don't think they count on people doing negative ones. It's just like, you offend advertisers and everything, and it probably wasn't a good idea. But, I thought they really wanted an authentic view of the food, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. If you don't get an authentic review of the food from a guy who thinks all spices are the same, don't do that. That's a
fair point.
I'm just saying.
I think that I represent the common man. I'm the kind of guy that, we pull up to Chili's and I'm like, oh, we can all agree on Chili's. Chili's is good. You know what I'm saying? I think that I reflect the common man's opinion on food. I love a casino buffet. That's one of the reasons, one of the things I loved in Shreveport. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, hey, I'm sorry that I cannot, if I eat something, I can't point out, oh, man, I can really taste the rosemary in this. Because I can't. And I don't think most people can either.
Well, I can definitely taste the rosemary in something. That's one of the most pungent spices and herbs you can possibly put in something. But hey,
wow.
Hey, let me tell you this though, Joel. You can do what I do if you ever do food reviews again. Just do what I do when I go to a barbecue place that doesn't stack up to my normal tastes, and I just mention a lot of things about it and not really talk about the food. Like, oh, what a cool place to go eat. Like, the decor is awesome. It's a neat, funky place. Yeah. They're doing their hard work and all that stuff. And if you just don't hear me talk about the brisket, it probably means the brisket's garbage.
I feel like not Bobby Flair? Who's homeboy that has the wild hair and
Guy Fieri?
Drive-ins and that?
Guy Fieri.
Yeah, Guy Fieri, man. I feel like sometimes I feel that's the same thing that he might do. He's like, oh yeah, no, that's a sandwich. So he doesn't say that it's good.
Yes.
He'll just be like, oh yeah, that's a sandwich.
He's not going to go to a place and destroy them. Like, oh, this is hot garbage, chef. You need to close immediately. This was a bad idea.
Yeah. He's like, did you intend for this to be that runny? Nah, he's not going to do that. But yeah, man, I get. But yeah, I mean, I know you get down on your barbecue. I'm surprised you even post about a place that isn't even good.
Well, I try to, especially because most of these are mom and pop type places. They're local. Yeah. I try not to bash local places if I can help it. People that are trying to do a good job. Because look, there are people who grew up on certain foods and they think that food hung the moon. There's a particular barbecue chain here in Shreveport that I grew up on. And so I look at that and go, man, I used to love that growing up. Well, now I think it's terrible and I wouldn't eat there, if you paid me, but I'm not going to say, so I understand if people grew up with a certain type of food and that's food nostalgia for them. So I get it.
Goodness. I didn't even, you know what? I lived in Shreveport all that time and I don't, maybe there was barbecue there. I don't remember it.
Yeah.
We don't have to talk about it on air, but I don't remember eating it. I'm a Texan, so I'm very I'm very provincial when it comes to my barbecue.
No, and rightfully so. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Like I said, I grew up here, and so what I thought barbecue is not actually what barbecue is. Once I started venturing into Texas to eat it, then I realized what barbecue is.
The Southland footprint is a good place for good barbecue. You lucked out. That helped out a lot with that. I'm sure.
It does not hurt. So you had the podcast going, the slow burn about the deaths of Tupac and Biggie. I'd like to tell you I listened to it, but that's so far out of my realm of expertise. Like literally, I'm a light rock guy. I grew up on light rock. Let's Talk KVKI. So, but it was very popular. You had a great run. Tell me about that, and then maybe what the next project is that's on the way.
Well, yeah, no, man, it was really cool. They brought me in. I left ESPN to try this out. It was basically a documentary podcast, 8 episodes that was about sort of untangling the ways in which Biggie and Tupac got famous and their brief friendship and how that friendship became very explosive and ultimately led to their deaths. Like I try to say, I have my parents listen to it, and they're not rap fans either, right? But it's more a story about these two very specific people in a specific time. And although music is a big part of it, it's not as big a part of it as the story that undergirds these two men and their lives and their deaths, right?
Yeah. So
that I did that. It was really, really cool. We went on a live tour in February. We went to D.C., New York, L.A., and San Francisco, and then we were going to have a show at South by Southwest in Austin, and then that show got canceled.
Right.
Because South by Southwest got canceled, so that kind of stunk because I was going to have family and friends there, and so we've been kind of sitting here, man. So yeah, since then I've just been writing, man. The things that you've seen, online, the Jordan piece. I did a piece actually on how COVID-19 affected a church in New Orleans.
Mm-hmm.
Before that, and now I'm just kind of every week I do the Hang Up and Listen Sports podcast for Slate and doing writing and trying to come up with some other podcast ideas. So yeah, man, it's been really, really cool. I miss college football. But now I think about it this year, I'm like, well, shoot, there might not even be games. So, I mean, I guess I lucked out in terms of timing.
Yeah, you made the move at the right time. Even though you didn't know what was coming, it turned out to be just right.
Yeah.
Also, your buddy Jason Pugh, now the sports information director at Northwestern State, just texted me and said the review that you mentioned of the Italian restaurant is legendary. So I'm trying to find a link to it so I can read it. He said it.
I don't even know if that thing is up anymore, man. I kind of hate it. I remember I used to go hoop over at Krista Shumpert, the one on Viking, right across the street from the Airline High School.
Yep.
And one of the guys that was there, he always used to just give me, noise because he knew the owner of that restaurant. He's like, that dude, he has a problem with you. You better keep a low profile. Nothing ever happened, and obviously I moved. But it's just I hate that. I hate in retrospect. I hate that I may have affected his business, but. Man, if you like that restaurant and you were going in there already, I don't think anything that I said would have affected you anyway.
No, I wouldn't think so. It actually reminds me the one time that I wrote a negative piece. The band at this is a quick story. Ouachita Baptist, where my alma mater, the band asked me to be their PA announcer during football games. They were really bad. They played a lot of slow music, a lot of hymn type music. It was not good. So the next week, I was the sports editor of the school paper. I wrote a column basically talking about how they were terrible at their jobs. They don't play any peppy music. They don't get the crowd into it. They're playing when the offense is on the field, all of that stuff. As you might imagine, I got fired as the band PA announcer that week. So,
oh, man, you got. The first rule is self-preservation, man. You gotta take care of yourself. But it's a fact you learned a valuable lesson.
I did. Don't bite the hand that writes your paycheck, that signs your paycheck.
That's right, absolutely. Hey, man, you'll never hear me say. I may feel a certain way about my employer, any of the employers I've had, but you'll never hear me say anything about it in public. I promise you that.
Joel, it was great. It was great catching up with you, man. Let's do it again soon. If you want to follow Joel at by Joel Anderson, by Joel Anderson on Twitter, go follow him there. Man, stay safe out there, please. Take care of the family, and we look forward to catching up soon, man.
All right, man, be a lot of fun. What's up, Pugh? All right, man, go take care, bro.
All right. Got a quick shout out for Jason Pugh, who was listening on over the sports information director at Northwestern State. It's Joel Anderson of Slate, who joined us on the Patrick Netherton Show.